It was a quiet evening in Muskogee, Oklahoma, in 2019, when a life-or-death emergency unfolded. Charity McIntosh, 8 months pregnant, was rushed to the nearest hospital, battling early labor complications. But when her billionaire husband, William McIntosh, stormed into the hospital, what should have been a moment of care and urgency turned into chaos. William's deep-seated racism erupted when he saw Dr. Christina Arnold, the black doctor leading Charity's care. "Get her away from my wife," he bellowed, demanding a transfer despite the staff's warnings that moving Charity could endanger both her life and the baby's. Little did William know that this was no ordinary doctor. Dr. Arnold was the CEO of the hospital and a celebrated Oxford scholar. But William's prejudice blinded him to the danger he was putting his family in. What would you do if the person you trusted most endangered your life? Stay with us to uncover this intense courtroom drama that reveals the shocking truth. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more compelling stories. William McIntosh had always prided himself on his wealth, his influence, and his unwavering beliefs. In Muskogee, Oklahoma, where he lived in a sprawling estate surrounded by a private security team, his disdain for black people was no secret. Among the local elite, he was known not only as a powerful real estate magnate, but also as a key player in a covert network of influential white businessmen who quietly worked to suppress black progress. They called themselves the Covenant, and their purpose was clear: to maintain their perceived racial superiority by undermining black excellence in every way possible. But that day at Trinity Care Hospital, William's arrogance was tested like never before. The sight of Dr. Christina Arnold, a black woman, commanding the emergency room had set him off completely. "How dare someone like you touch my wife?" he yelled, pointing an accusing finger at her as she calmly tried to explain the critical nature of the situation. The hospital staff stood frozen as his voice echoed through the sterile room. He demanded that a white doctor be brought in immediately to handle Charity's care. Dr. Arnold, however, didn't flinch. Maintaining her professionalism, she responded in a firm yet measured tone. "Mr. McIntosh, I understand your concerns, but your wife's condition is serious. We don't have the luxury of time to wait for another doctor. You need to let us do our job." William scoffed and turned to the nearest nurse, a young white man who looked visibly uncomfortable. "You're telling me no one else here is qualified? This is outrageous. I'll make sure this so-called doctor never works again." Meanwhile, Charity, lying on the hospital bed, struggled to speak. "William, please stop. I'm in pain," she whispered weakly, but her words fell on deaf ears. William's rage was now entirely focused on Christina, ignoring his wife's pleas and the visible concern of the hospital staff. Little did William know that his actions would soon have consequences that even his wealth and power couldn't shield him from. The air in the emergency room was thick with tension as William McIntosh's voice boomed, drowning out the steady beeping of the heart monitor. His sharp eyes darted between the hospital staff, all of whom avoided his gaze, and landed squarely on Dr. Christina Arnold. "I refuse to stand here and let someone like you touch my wife," he barked, his hand jabbing in her direction. His words, laced with venom, sent a chill through the room. Christina, however, stood her ground. "Mr. McIntosh, your wife's condition is deteriorating. Moving her now could lead to life-threatening complications. I strongly advise you to let us proceed with her care," she said, her tone steady and professional. William sneered, dismissing her entirely. "You think I care about your advice? You're nothing more than a glorified nurse pretending to be a doctor." His voice dripped with condescension. A Hispanic nurse stepped forward cautiously. "Sir, Dr. Arnold is the head of this hospital. She's the most experienced doctor here." William's face contorted with rage. "Head of the hospital? Are you all out of your minds? She's not touching my wife." He turned to another nurse. "Call someone else. Now." Meanwhile, Charity lay on the hospital bed, her breathing shallow and labored. She tried to speak, but the pain was overwhelming. "William, stop, please," she managed to whisper, her voice barely audible. But William ignored her completely, his pride and prejudice blinding him to the reality of the situation. He gestured wildly at the staff. "If you won't get me another doctor, I'll have her transferred to another hospital." Dr. Arnold took a step closer, her voice unwavering. "Mr. McIntosh, transferring your wife now would be dangerous. I cannot stop you, but I will need you to sign a liability waiver, acknowledging that you are putting her life and your child's life at risk." For a moment, William hesitated, his bravado faltering slightly. But his ego quickly reasserted itself. "Fine. Get me the papers," he snapped, ignoring the collective sigh of relief from the staff. "Things are just heating up. Do you think William's actions will lead to dire consequences? Drop your thoughts in the comments and stay tuned for the twists ahead. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe for more gripping content." William McIntosh's decision to sign the liability waiver was meant to assert his dominance, but the tension in the room only deepened. As the nurses prepared the paperwork, Charity's condition took a sudden turn. Her breathing grew more strained, and the monitor beside her began to beep erratically. Dr. Christina Arnold's calm composure remained, though her voice sharpened. "Mr. McIntosh, we're running out of time. I strongly urge you to reconsider. Your wife and child's lives depend on immediate medical intervention." William glanced at Charity, her pale face glistening with sweat, but his pride refused to yield. "You're bluffing. I've seen this kind of dramatization before. Call someone else now." Christina stepped closer, her tone firm. "This is not a dramatization. Her blood pressure is dropping, and she's at risk of going into shock. Moving her now could result in irreversible damage or death." The words hung heavily in the air, silencing even William. But before he could respond, Charity let out a sharp cry, clutching her belly. The lead nurse stepped forward, addressing Christina. "Doctor, we're seeing signs of placental abruption." Christina acted quickly. "Prepare thee, or immediately. We'll need to perform an emergency C-section." William exploded. "What? Absolutely not. No surgery. She'll deliver naturally just like we planned." Christina turned to him, her voice cold and unwavering. "Mr. McIntosh, your wife is bleeding internally. Without immediate surgery, she and your child could die." As the nurses hurried to wheel Charity to the operating room, William attempted to block their path. "I said no surgery. You're not touching her." Christina stepped in front of him, her calm exterior giving way to visible frustration. "If you obstruct this procedure, you will be directly responsible for their deaths. Is that what you want?" William froze, his chest heaving with anger and uncertainty. For the first time, he seemed genuinely shaken. But his hesitation cost precious seconds, and Christina didn't wait for his response. "Let's go," she commanded, and the team rushed Charity to the operating room. The operating room was a flurry of controlled chaos as the medical team worked to stabilize Charity. Dr. Christina Arnold gave clear, concise instructions, her voice cutting through the tension like a scalpel. Meanwhile, William McIntosh, standing outside the OR, paced furiously, his arrogance battling with the reality of the situation. From behind the glass window of the OR, William could see Christina leading the team, her composed demeanor unshaken even in the face of his earlier outburst. He clenched his fists, muttering under his breath, "How can someone like her have so much authority? This is outrageous." Inside, Christina focused solely on Charity's care. Charity had lost a significant amount of blood, and Christina's quick decisions were critical in preventing further complications. The surgical team moved with precision, responding to her every command. "Clamp here. Increase the foredrip. Monitor her vitals closely," she instructed, her tone calm yet firm. As the surgery progressed, Charity's condition began to stabilize, but the baby was still in distress. Christina's assistant spoke quietly. "Doctor, we need to move quickly if we're going to save them both." Outside, William's frustration boiled over. He turned to a hospital administrator who had approached to check on the situation. "This is your fault. You should have had someone else here. My wife wouldn't be in this position if it weren't for..." He trailed off, his words dripping with disdain. The administrator, a seasoned professional, replied firmly, "Mr. McIntosh, I suggest you channel your energy into praying for your wife and child instead of blaming the people trying to save them." Moments later, Christina emerged from the OR, pulling off her gloves with a sigh of relief. "Your wife and baby are stable for now, but the next 24 hours will be critical." William glared at her, his pride refusing to let him express gratitude. Instead, he snapped, "We'll see how long you keep your job after this." Christina simply stared at him, her expression unreadable. "You should focus on your family, Mr. McIntosh. That's all that matters right now." With tensions rising, will Charity realize the full extent of William's actions? Let us know your predictions in the comments below. The tension didn't dissipate after the surgery. William McIntosh remained in the hallway, stewing in his frustration, while hospital staff avoided his piercing glare. Inside the operating room, the medical team completed their work, carefully monitoring Charity as she was wheeled into the recovery room. Dr. Christina Arnold, after ensuring her team had everything under control, exited the OR to provide William with an update. "Mr. McIntosh, your wife and baby have both made it through the procedure. They're stable, but the next 24 hours will be critical," she said, her tone calm and professional. William's response was anything but gracious. "You don't get to take credit for saving my family. You're lucky this worked out, or you'd be out of a job by now," he snapped. Christina, unfazed, stood her ground. "Mr. McIntosh, my only priority is the well-being of my patients. I suggest you direct your energy toward supporting your wife." As Charity regained consciousness in the recovery room, her mind was clouded by the pain and disorientation of surgery. Her weak voice called out, "William, where's the baby? Is everything okay?" When William entered the room, his demeanor softened momentarily as he took Charity's hand. "The baby's fine, Charity. You're fine. That's all that matters," he said, his voice uncharacteristically quiet. But Charity's eyes locked onto Christina, who had followed the team into the recovery room to ensure everything was stable. Charity managed a faint smile. "Thank you, doctor," she whispered, her gratitude genuine. William stiffened, glaring at Christina. "We don't need her here anymore," he said sharply. Charity's eyes narrowed, her voice gaining strength. "William, stop. She saved us. You need to stop this hatred." For the first time, William was rendered silent by his wife's words. The tension in the room was almost tangible, as if everyone present knew that this moment would shape the family's future. Christina gave Charity a reassuring nod before stepping out, leaving William to face the consequences of his actions. Consequences that were about to take a dramatic turn. The morning sun filtered through the blinds of the recovery room as Charity rested, her breath steady but weak. William McIntosh sat by her bedside, his frustration temporarily quelled by exhaustion. Despite the apparent calm, his mind churned with thoughts of regaining control of the situation. Dr. Christina Arnold re-entered the room, this time accompanied by the hospital administrator. Both carried an air of authority that immediately unsettled William. The administrator, a tall man in his 50s with a calm but stern demeanor, began to speak. "Mr. McIntosh, we reviewed the events of last night, and I must express concern about your behavior. Your interference endangered your wife and child." William's face darkened. "Concern? You should be thanking me for my restraint. I'll have this hospital shut down before you blame me for your incompetence." Christina remained composed, her voice steady as she added, "Mr. McIntosh, the decisions made in that operating room saved your family's lives. Your refusal to cooperate not only jeopardized them, but put undue stress on the staff." Charity, stirring from her rest, opened her eyes and caught the heated exchange. Her voice, though faint, cut through the tension. "William, stop this. Please." The room fell silent as Charity continued, her gaze fixed on her husband. "Do you even realize what could have happened? Your pride almost killed us." William stiffened, his arrogance cracking under the weight of her words. For a moment he said nothing, his gaze shifting between his wife and Christina. His silence was deafening. Charity's voice grew stronger. "Dr. Arnold, thank you. I owe you everything. I'm sorry for what you had to endure because of us." Christina nodded gently. "Your recovery is all that matters now." As she turned to leave, William called after her, his tone biting. "Don't think this is over. I'll be speaking to my lawyers." But Charity's next words stopped him cold. "William, when I'm discharged, I'm filing for divorce." Did you see this coming? Charity's bold decision has turned the tables. Share your thoughts and theories in the comments, and make sure you've subscribed to catch the next big reveal. The weight of Charity's words settled heavily in the room. William McIntosh, always a man of control, sat frozen. Divorce was a word he had never imagined hearing from his wife, let alone under these circumstances. His face turned pale as he stammered, "Charity, you can't be serious." Charity's resolve didn't waver. "I've never been more serious, William. Last night made me realize how far you've let your hatred and arrogance blind you. You almost killed me and our child just to protect your ego." William's lips quivered, but his pride wouldn't let him back down completely. "Everything I've done has been for this family, Charity. To protect you. To ensure we're surrounded by the right people." Charity cut him off, her voice sharp. "The right people? You mean people who look like you and think like you? Your bigotry is suffocating, William. I'm tired of living in fear of what you might say or do next. You crossed a line last night, and I can't forgive that." Dr. Christina Arnold, still standing near the door, exchanged a brief glance with the hospital administrator. She remained quiet, but her presence was a constant reminder of the night's events. William, desperate to regain control, shifted his approach. "Charity, think about what you're saying. You're upset. You're not thinking clearly. We can fix this." Charity shook her head, tears brimming in her eyes. "I'm thinking clearer than I have in years, William. I won't let our child grow up in an environment poisoned by your hatred. This ends now." The administrator, sensing the rising tension, gently interjected. "Mrs. McIntosh needs rest. Mr. McIntosh, I suggest you leave for now. William's jaw tightened, his anger bubbling just beneath the surface. He turned to Christina one last time. This isn't over, he hissed before storming out of the room. As the door swung shut, Charity let out a shaky breath. Christina approached her bedside, placing a reassuring hand on her arm. You're stronger than you know, Christina said softly. This emotional journey reminds us of the dangers of unchecked hatred and pride. What do you think of Charity's decision to part ways? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to join us for more captivating stories. As William stormed out of the recovery room, Charity's trembling voice echoed in his mind. When I'm discharged, I'm filing for divorce. He knew this wasn't an idle threat. Charity's resolve was stronger than ever, and there was no turning back. Weeks later, the Muskogee, Oklahoma courtroom was packed to capacity. Reporters jostled for seats, eager to capture the drama unfolding between one of the wealthiest men in the region and his estranged wife. Judge Eleanor Hart, known for her impartiality, called the court to order, her gavel ringing with authority. Charity sat on the plaintiff's side, her calm but determined expression reflecting her strength. Her attorney, Dana Hargrove, confidently outlined the case. William's negligence and outright hostility had endangered Charity and their unborn child, leaving no room for defense. William's lawyer, Elliot Crane, tried to paint the events as misunderstandings fueled by stress, but his argument lacked conviction. The turning point came when Dr. Christina Arnold took the stand. With unflinching clarity, she described how William's actions disrupted the medical team's ability to care for Charity. Security footage of his tirades and obstruction left the courtroom stunned. Charity's testimony delivered the final blow. He risked everything, my life, our child's life, all to satisfy his hatred. That's not love. That's cruelty. As Judge Hart delivered the verdict, granting Charity full custody, significant damages, and a final divorce, William sat motionless, his empire crumbling before his eyes. Charity's victory seemed complete. But beneath the surface, darker questions loomed. Why was William so resolute, even willing to risk his family's lives? His hatred seemed almost orchestrated, far beyond personal bias. The truth was chilling. William was deeply tied to a covert network of elites, a cartel of powerful white individuals united by a singular goal: suppressing black progress at all costs. Their influence spanned industries, courts, and communities, ensuring that systemic oppression endured. As the courtroom cleared, a young black investigative journalist observed quietly from the back row. "This isn't over," she whispered, her notebook in hand. She had uncovered whispers of this cartel and intended to expose their secrets. Do you want to see how deep this cartel's influence runs and the journalists fight to uncover the truth? Let us know in the comments if you want the next episode to dive into this dangerous web of corruption and hatred. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated as we uncover the shocking secrets behind William McIntosh's actions. Your support keeps these stories alive, so make sure to stay tuned.